Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you're notified when I upload. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some super delicious dinner ideas. And as you know, I've done a couple of lunch, breakfast, and even some treat ideas. So why not move on to some nighttime meals, which are some of these dinner ideas. They're some of my favourite go-to dinners that I love, and I know that you all love too. Some of them may take a bit of work, but the effort that you put into them is totally worth it. So let's get into it. The first recipe is spaghetti bolognese, and this is a favourite of mine and has been for so many years. So the first thing we're going to do is chop up all our vegetables. I'm going to peel and finely chop one onion by cutting it into halves and then cutting those halves in halves until you end up with finely chopped onion basically. Then we're going to take out a casserole dish or some other sort of big heavy pan and just drizzle it with some oil, put it on the heat, and once it's all heated up, we'll just add the onions in there and just saute that for a bit. And just taking the carrot, cutting the ends off, cutting that in half, and then cutting into more halves. Just basically finely chopping that, the same as the onion. And then we're going to add that to the sauteing onion. And then doing the same thing with the zucchini, cutting the ends of that, cutting it in half, and then into even more halves. And then adding that to the onions and carrots. Then we're going to take this bunch of celery, chop that horrid white part off, and just start finely chopping up the celery, making your way up to the leaves. And yes, you don't need to throw out celery leaves. Just keep them. They don't hurt you, but just add it to the sauteing vegetables. And we're just going to give this a big old stir to ensure that all the vegetables cook evenly. And we're going to add in this beef mince. This is about 500 grams. And we're going to give this all a stir and just keep stirring everything until there's no red left on the meat. Now it's time to start incorporating a sauce into it. So what we're going to do is add in 2 400-gram tins of diced tomatoes. Next, we're going to add in about 2 tablespoons worth of this passata, aka what was left in this bottle. We're going to add in a tablespoon of red wine vinegar, and then we're going to create like a little well in the center, and I'm going to add in some frozen chicken stock. We make our own stock at home, but if you're using liquid stock, this is probably about a cup's worth, and you can use any sort of stock. But we're going to bring this to the boil, and then we're going to fill up a large saucepan with water. We're going to place it on a high heat to start boiling, and then by that point our bolognese sauce would have just started boiling. So we're going to add in some frozen peas, just finishing off what was left in this bag, and we're just going to cover it, and we'll just let that simmer. And to our boiling water, we're just going to add some salt to it, and then once the water's finally started boiling, we're going to get out some spaghetti and just add in about 500 grams and just cook it for about 10 to 12 minutes, and then put the lid on the saucepan, but don't cover it all the way, as that's what causes the water to overflow. And yes, there's no handle on this saucepan lid, but it's still functionable. And then we're going to crush 2 cloves of garlic and add them to our bolognese. Then after 10 to 12 minutes, test the pasta, and if it's al dente, grab out a colander and drain the spaghetti into it, give it a shake, and now it's time to start serving. So place a portion of pasta into a bowl, or bowls depending on how many people you're making this for, then add the bolognese on top, and there you go, spaghetti bolognese. You honestly can't go wrong with a classic dinner of spaghetti bolognese. It's so delicious, so flavourful, and is definitely a household favourite at my house. This next recipe is Turkish lamb mini pizzas, because this is basically a Turkish lamb dish, but put onto homemade mini pizza bases, which is actually really cool. So the first thing we need to do is actually make our mini pizza bases. So the first thing we're going to do is add 125 mils of warm water, aka half a cup, to a glass or measuring jug or something like that. And we're going to add in a yeast sachet and add in a teaspoon of sugar, aka 2 half teaspoons. We're going to give this a stir, and then place the jug or glass in a small bowl of hot water to help the yeast ferment. And in a large bowl, we're going to sift in 2 cups of flour, which is 4 half cups. And then we're going to add in half a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of bread improver. And because this dish is 2 components, we're going to be multitasking, so things might get a little all over the place, but it's okay, we'll manage. So we're going to get out an onion, chop the ends off and finally chop it. Then we're going to get out a red chili, top and tail it, and then finally slice it. Feel free to de-seed it, but I like a good bit of spice, so I'm just going to leave the seeds in. Then we're going to peel and finally chop 2 cloves of garlic. Now back to our dry ingredients. We're going to add a teaspoon of oil, which is 2 half teaspoons. I couldn't find our teaspoon when filming this. Then we're going to add in our yeast mixture and just mix everything with a table knife. And this is a bit too dry, so I just added in another teaspoon's worth of oil and just kept mixing to form a dough. And so to a lightly floured surface, we're just going to knead this. It should take about a good 5 minutes. And then once it's smooth and the top bounces back to its original shape, that's when you know that the dough has been kneaded enough. And then we're going to cover the dough with the bowl and just leave it to rest for a little bit. Now we can actually get started into properly making our Turkish lamb. So we're going to drizzle some oil in a large saucepan, heat it up, and then add the onion, chili, and garlic, and just saute all that for a little bit. And then we're going to add in the lamb mince. This is about 400 to 500 grams. And we're going to give this all a stir, making sure to break up the mince. We're then going to preheat our oven, and we're going to start chopping up some more vegetables to add to our lamb. So we're going to take a carrot and just do that old halving technique of cutting it into halves until it's basically finely chopped. We're going to do the exact same thing with the zucchini and then do that same technique with the capsicum. And then I'm going to take some button mushrooms and just cut them into slices and then finally chop those slices. I'm using 4 in total, and we're just going to add this all to the mix and give this a good old stir. And now we can actually start making this into a sauce. So we're going to add in a can of diced tomatoes, and then we're going to add in some spices. So we're going to add a teaspoon of allspice and a teaspoon of cinnamon. We're going to let this simmer for a while, and to a dry fry pan, we're going to add in a generous portion of pine nuts. Put this on medium heat, and we're just going to toast them. You must keep an eye on these, as these can go from being pale and blonde to burnt to a crisp. So make sure that you're regularly turning them, and once they start to turn a light brown, turn the heat off immediately. In the meantime, we're going to remove the dough from its resting place and cut it with a table knife into 3 portions. We're going to roll out each portion to create a mini pizza base. I know I'm not the best at rolling, but just something like that. So once that's done, we're going to take out a baking tray, line it with some baking paper, and then place our weird pizza base on that, and then repeat with the other portions. And then we're just going to spoon over a generous amount of our Turkish lamb, as much as will fit on these pizza bases, and then we're going to sprinkle over the toasted pine nuts, and then we're going to place these in the oven for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then once it's time to serve, we can serve up some of the remaining Turkish lamb mixture, and then remove our mini pizzas from the oven, add to the plate, and there we go, Turkish lamb mini pizzas. Those Middle Eastern flavors just hit so well, and gotta love homemade mini pizzas. Out of everything I've ever made, this has probably been one of my favorites to date, so that's saying something. This next recipe is this Cypriot grain and halloumi salad. This is a classic grain salad originating from Cyprus, which you no doubt would have heard of before, but I thought I'd share it anyway, as this is just so delicious. To get started, we're going to finally chop up some herbs. So we're just taking some coriander, parsley, and mint, and finally chopping it with a herb crusher, and then adding to a massive salad bowl to start our salad. Next, we're going to take a red onion, peel it, and then finally chop it, and add it to the herbs. Then we're going to chop up some vegetables that we're going to cook to add as an accompaniment to our salad. So first, we're taking a zucchini, cutting it in half and then into quarters, and just slicing down those quarters. And then we're taking a yellow capsicum, cutting it into strips, and then roughly chopping it. We're then taking an onion and just finely chopping that, and then finally chopping 2 cloves of garlic. And then we're taking a heap of button mushrooms and just finely slicing them. Now it's time to start working on our grains. So I'm taking half a cup of brown lentils and placing them in a strainer to rinse them, and then doing the same with half a cup of quinoa and transferring to a saucepan. And then I'm adding 1.5 cups of water, and we're going to leave this to cook on the stove until the liquid has been all absorbed, which should take about 15 to 20 minutes. Next, we're going to cook our veggies, so we're going to drizzle some oil in a fry pan, and then once it's heated, add all the veggies. I'm going to cook all this for a little bit, and then eventually our quinoa and lentils will be be done, so we can just turn those off the heat. And then add this to our salad bowl. Then we're gonna take some halloumi cheese and just dice it up, and then add it to our vegetables, and we'll just leave that cooking until the halloumi starts to become golden and crispy, which is what we want. In the meantime, to our currant salad, we're gonna add in a decent handful of currants. We're gonna add in a teaspoon of olive oil, 2 teaspoons of red wine vinegar, and then in a separate bowl, we're gonna add a few teaspoons full of Greek yogurt and a teaspoon of olive oil and just mix that all together. And then we're gonna heat up a dry fry pan and add in some pepitas, flaked almonds, and pine nuts. And we're just gonna lightly toast all this. And in the meantime, we're gonna take a pomegranate and just break it all apart to get all the seeds out. I'm starting with half a pomegranate, but I did end up using the whole pomegranate. And by that point, everything should be done cooking. We're gonna mix the toasted nuts and seeds in with the salad. We're gonna mix in the yogurt and olive oil with the salad and place a portion of that alongside the halloumi and veggies. And then there you have it, this Cypriot grain and halloumi salad. This is amazing. Got a combination of different textures. If you're not a huge fan of salads, just wait till you try this one. Your taste buds will be blown away. This last recipe is bangers and mash with veg. This is a very frequent dinner in my household, and out of all these recipes, this one's probably the most straightforward. So we're going to start off by preheating our oven to 180 degrees. Then I'm taking out this sweet potato half and just peeling it, and then cutting into slices, lining the baking tray with some baking paper and placing the sweet potato slices onto it. I'm going to drizzle over a little bit of olive oil to help them get nice and crispy, and transferring them to an oven, leaving them to cook for about an hour. Next, we're gonna start working on the potatoes. So I'm taking a couple of potatoes and just peeling them. Doesn't matter what kind, just any that would be suitable for mashing. Then I'm gonna place the boiling water from the kettle into a saucepan and place it on the heat. And then once it's started bubbling, we're gonna add the potatoes, chop into smaller pieces, and leave to cook for about 40 minutes, covering them. Next, we're gonna prepare the rest of our veggies. So taking a carrot, top and tailing it, and just cutting it into slices, and then break off some stalks of broccoli. And now we're going to start cooking our sausages. So we'll just drizzle some oil in a fry pan and place it on the heat. And at this point, we can go ahead and check on our sweet potatoes and rotate them as necessary. And then by that point, the oil in the pan would have heated up, so we can just add our sausages, which I think these ones were just classic pork sausages, which you can never go wrong with. And these will take about 20 minutes to cook, at which point we can start steaming our vegetables. So we'll place our carrots on first, and then probably about every 5 minutes, just keep rotating those sausages so each part cooks evenly. And then once the sausages have been cooking for about 10 minutes, we can add the broccoli to the steamer. And then after about 10 minutes, we can serve up our steamed broccoli and carrots. And then we can start making our mash. So we're going to strain our liquid from the saucepan as best we can by just covering the saucepan with the lid while we're pouring the water out. Could just use a strainer, but I didn't want a dirty one. And we're going to add a dollop of butter to the potatoes and start mashing them with a potato masher. Make sure you really get in there and mash up all those big chunks of potato. We're then going to add a dash of milk to make the mash nice and creamy, give it a stir, and then serve it up alongside our steamed veg, as well as the sausages. We're going to remove our nice and crispy sweet potatoes from the oven and serve it up. And there you have it. Bangers and mash with veg. I know this seems like a lot of food, but I was super hungry this day, and I was just cooking for myself. And when I cook for myself, I tend to go a little crazy on the portion sizes, but it was fine, and you really can't go wrong with just some meat and veg. So that is it for these super delicious dinner ideas. I hope that you all enjoyed and will try these dinners out yourself. These will definitely be a hit with the family. I know they were with mine, because everyone will just keep wanting to come back for more. So definitely try these out. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any new videos. So, till next time, in my next video, I shall see you then. Goodbye.